So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about 6 Stephen King books that I want or need to reread. And of course, for each of these individual books, I will give my individual reasoning for either wanting or needing to reread the book and what that means. But yeah, these are books that I really do want to get to rereading soon. I don't know if I'll have time to do it this year because I have a lot of stuff planned for this year, but eventually I want to get around to rereading these books. If you haven't seen my previous videos, I talked about Stephen King books that I liked more upon a reread and Stephen King books that I liked less upon a reread. I'll mark those down below in the comments, so check those out if you haven't already. But like I said, for today's video, these are going to be Stephen King books that I actually do want to reread. I think for all of these, I've only read them once, so they're due for a reread. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So for this first book, it's a little weird because I do want to reread it, but I want to read a different version of it. You guys might be curious about what that means. Some of y'all might already know what it means. I'm of course talking about The Stand. I've read the uncut version, but this is actually the original version, which is a lot less shorter, or it's shorter. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not as long. The uncut version, is like 1,100 pages, super long, one of the longest books he's ever written, probably. This one, my mass market version, is 800 pages, and part 2 of this is like significantly shorter. I'm thinking I'm going to have a better time with this than the uncut version. The uncut version for me is just, it's Stephen King's most overrated book in my mind. I get why people love it, but at the same time, it's so bloated, and I mean, the characters are great, but like the story itself is just not that compelling for me, and the ending is one of the worst Stephen King endings of all time. Yeah, it's just not a book that I really enjoyed too much. Like, I enjoyed part 1 of it immensely. It was good. Like, I read part 1 and I was like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. The rest of the book, it wasn't for me. But the reason why I want to reread this book, or, just read the original version, is that it is a lot shorter and it's going to be a lot less bloated than, the uncut version. So I'm thinking if I'm going to like The Stand more, it's going to be with the original version that's a lot shorter and maybe more condensed and more refined. So I'm hoping to like it a bit more upon a reread. And definitely let me know if you guys have read both, like which one do you prefer? I know a lot of people still love the uncut version more, but I'm curious to see if you've read both of them, which one do you enjoy more? So comment that down below, please. This next one I'm very interested to reread because I've been seeing people read this book and have a really good time with it. And maybe it's not their like all-time favorite, but they had a positive experience with this book. And for me, the first half I really got along with, but once the supernatural element kind of gets introduced, I really didn't get along with it. But I'm interested to give it another shot. Maybe I'll like it more upon a reread. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about Rose Matter. So the beginning of this book is very compelling because it's about a wife who's being abused by her cop husband, and she decides to run away, not tell the husband where she's going, and she finds a new life in a new city, and you're following her perspective as she's doing that. You're also getting the abusive husband who's a cop, who's kind of using his knowledge of everything to try to find her, and it's pretty tense because of that. But there's also a weird supernatural element where she buys this painting. I won't get into it if you don't want spoilers, but like that whole thing I really didn't like, in the ending with the painting, like, I don't know. I just didn't get along with all of that. It was so compelling, and then he kind of shoehorns in a supernatural element, and I just did not get along with it. So, I don't know. Maybe upon a reread, I would like it more. Definitely let me know what you guys think. The next book that I'm curious about, but also hesitant about rereading, is Bag of Bones. This one is peculiar because I know a lot of people cite this as like a top 5 or top 10 Stephen King book, but then a lot of people cite it as his worst book, or like in like his subpar books. And definitely when I read it for the first time, and I've actually only read it once, years and years ago. This was like somewhere within like the first 15 or 20 Stephen King books I gave a shot. I really did not like it. I gave it 2 stars. It started off kind of compelling because you got an author character, which he uses a lot, but it's him kind of grieving over his wife, and then he kind of moves to a new place, and the place, kind of gets haunted. I don't know. It was somewhat interesting in the beginning, but it's a bit bloated. It's a bit chunky. I really didn't find the antagonist all that compelling, and the other characters around the author character, I didn't really find that intriguing either. And just the story itself, I don't know. I was kind of bored with a lot of it. But I am willing to give it another shot because, like in the first video, I did find some new favorites when I did decide to go back and reread some books. So maybe I'd like it more upon a reread, but I'm hesitant. But definitely let me know what you guys think of Bag of Bones. Do you love it or do you hate it? Do you think I'm going to like it more upon a reread? I will eventually give it a shot, but it's not something that I'm like super eager to do. Another book that I'm interested in rereading because I honestly don't know if I'm going to like it more, if I'm going to like it less, if I'm going to like it the same. I don't really know, but I'm curious. It's definitely cited as one of his worst books. I don't know, but I'm talking about From a Buick 8. I know it has its fans. I would say the majority of King fans kind of just call this an okay read. And honestly, this book probably should have just been a novella. He's usually good at deciding like what a story length, like what a good story length is for any story. So he's really good at novellas and short novels in my mind. This one, is like 450 pages. Not the shortest thing he's ever written. I think this book just kind of gets very repetitive where these characters are kind of finding the same thing over and over again. I think it would have been more compelling if we just got like one experience with that and it was just very weird and out there. Like less than 200, like 200 pages or less would have been a very fitting page count for this story. But for what we get, it's interesting. The characters are somewhat compelling. It just gets really repetitive because the same thing kind of happens over and over again. You're like, okay, we get it. Weird stuff is happening with the car. We get it. But I don't know. Maybe I'll like it more upon a reread. Maybe I'll like it less. I just really need to figure out where I stand on this book because I read this book a long time ago. I remember some stuff, but really it's very foggy in my memory. What do you guys think of this book? Do you love it or hate it? Do you think I'm going to like it upon a reread? I don't know. I'm very curious. The next book, I don't necessarily want to reread, but I feel like I need to reread it because I need to reread it already knowing how it's going to end and just be prepared. Like, I already know how it's going to end, so I know how bad the ending is. But when I read this for the first time, I was loving it until the very end. So I want to know, like with the foreshadowing and I don't know. I'm talking about Under the Dome, if you couldn't tell. Like I said, when I was first rereading it, this was like one of my all-time favorite Stephen King books. Like 900 pages of like just pure character work and just tense moments of just this whole town being captured under a dome and like what that would look like, what that would feel like, the tension between the townsfolk, the protagonist, the antagonist, and then you get to the ending and you're just like, this is fucking stupid. It's the worst Stephen King ending in my mind. I don't know. Maybe I'll be more forgiving upon it, forgiving with it. I can't talk. Maybe I'll be more forgiving with it upon a reread. I doubt it, but I'm just very curious to see how I get along with it, already knowing what the ending is going to be. Am I going to enjoy all of this character nuance and things that happen in the book, or am I just going to be dreading the ending? I don't know. I know a lot of people cite this as their favorite or one of their favorites, and that's fine. But I don't know, man. I don't know. And the last book that I'm going to talk about is actually more a positive note. I really enjoyed this the first time I read it, and I just really want to reread it because it's been a while. I read it when it first came out, but it's been, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 years since then. I think 6. I think this was 2018. I really enjoyed it, and I want to reread it again, damn it. And that would, of course, be The Outsider by Stephen King. Duh. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book the first time around. I think some people had mixed feelings on it, especially once it gets to the halfway point and you realize what's going on. And then a certain character from other books happen or appear in this book, and they're like, it's fine. I really love this book. I give it 4.5 stars, and I just really want to reread it because it's one of my favorites. So yeah, kind of a quick deal here. A lot of these other books, I'm like kind of wishy-washy. Like, do I actually want to reread them? But for this one, I genuinely want to reread it. All right, so those are 6 Stephen King books that I either want or need to reread for various reasons. And yeah, please let me know what you think down below. Are there any Stephen King books that you want or need to reread, either because they're just some of your favorites or you haven't read them in a very long time and you want to see how well they hold up? That's definitely a lot of these books for me. So please leave all your comments down below. I'd love to chat with you about it. And yeah, this was just a fun little trilogy of videos to do about Stephen King rereads. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to do a lot of Stephen King rereads this year. Maybe next year I can throw in a couple and just see how I get along with them. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for checking all these out. I'm definitely going to try to come up with some more Stephen King videos in the future. I do like to do Stephen King Fridays. If you guys have any suggestions, leave your comments down below of future Stephen King content you would like to see on the channel. And of course, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, Bookish Drummer Discord. I also have my Patreon link down below and my Amazon wishlist. Thank you guys so much for watching all these videos, and yeah, have a great day.